So Donald Trump just came out and said he will not have another lockdown in the US. So it's probably a good time to start looking at some of their much sought after airline stocks. Delta Airlines is probably one of the most famous airline stocks to look at. So in this video, let's give an STI to Delta Airlines. So just before we get into the reasons why you should or should not buy Delta Airlines, I just want to say that airlines are probably one of the most risky sectors in generic terms when it comes to buying stocks. Throw in a COVID virus, that risk definitely goes up a level, which I'll talk about in a little minute. But if you could do me the kindest favor of smashing that like button until it turns blue, help feed a baby by hitting subscribe and turning on the bell. And if you're feeling extra saucy and kinky, drop us a follow on Instagram and Facebook. So the risks with airlines, well, it's pretty obvious. Flights are gonna be grounded still with COVID, limited travel, limited seats on the plane, so they're not operating at full capacity. You've then got an election coming up, so that could all change as well. You've got taxes being potentially imposed by the Biden party on big companies and big business, which for sure will affect the whole stock market, not just airlines. You then have the massive debt pileup that these airlines have had during COVID because they've not been flying, they've just been borrowing money. So we have to repay that as well. And in generic terms, I'm just not a big fan of airline stocks as a whole. I have held some in the past, and I think 1 out of maybe 5 or 6 positions worked out for me. I think that airlines are it's a very tough business. They barely make a profit, and there is a very few business models that are listed that actually do make money long term, and there's a lot of risk. So I just want to make you aware of that. On my little Excel, I'm going to give the risk rating a 4 out of 15, obviously 0 being the highest risk. So I do want to say airlines in whole are very risky, so Delta is a 4 out of 15, not that good. But coming on to Delta Airlines specifically, the biggest news that could go for this is that airlines reopen. There's nothing really worth mentioning fundamentally. There's no real CEO changes or board changes or anything that's going to push this company up. The whole sort of thing you want to look at with airlines, and especially Delta, is COVID news. Are airlines going to open up and can travel restart? That is the biggest thing you want to look for, and you don't want to get in on that news that the world has reopened, because it's going to be a gradual step. So if you do want airlines, probably a good time to start getting in on big dips. And them dips will come. Let me tell you, they will come. You don't need to chase this chart up. Now, Delta Airlines stock price is around $30, $31 at the recording of this video. Pre-COVID, it was over 60, and at the lows of COVID, it was at 18. So we are sort of in this middle range. So if you wanted to get in on the dip, $20, $21 was probably your perfect entry, and you could risk that little $18. But we've missed that boat. I don't think we'll get it again unless there's serious risk of this company going bankrupt. They have a 20 billion market cap even at these low discounted prices, so they are a very, very big airline, one of the bigger ones in the world, if I'm honest with you. And if we go on to Simply Wall Street and put in all their little algorithmic data, they think that Delta Airlines is potentially 68% undervalued. Now, that's quite a good undervaluation, but because the airline's not profitable, there's no peg and PE, so it's a bit contradicting. You know, you sort of, if you're going for an undervalued stock, you want it at least to be close to profitability, which Delta Airlines are quite damn far away from right now. So as far as value goes, out of 15 on my Excel, I'm going to give this a 12 out of 15. Very, very good value. And if we go back to them pre-COVID lows, we are, you know, in the money. You could potentially double your money. So the value is good, but the peg and the PE, it's negative, man. It's a 0 and a 0 because we can't calculate anything. So for me, you can't really have airlines at the same. You can't have a good valuation and a positive PE, because if the company goes up with a positive PE, we're probably already out of COVID, right? So you've got to weigh that up in this. It's quite a unique situation where I don't think you can have a good undervalued airline with a positive return, especially not undervalued by more than 20%. Now, the second biggest thing that concerns me with Delta Airlines is the assets and liabilities. Short term 18 and their liabilities are 20, so that's not a good sign. But long term, assets do outweigh liabilities briefly. We've got 53 and 43 respectively, but that's still very, very close and not a lot of cash on hand, so it does worry me quite a bit, to be honest. Another big sort of concern is their sort of debt to equity, which has gone crazy during COVID. So they have a lot of debt which they will need to pay off, which will eat into profits, which will probably cost the dividend eventually, and it is a sort of big red flag for me. I mean, every company is piling debt, it's no secret, which will probably help a big crash when it comes. and trust me, it's coming. But for that reason alone, it's something that I would not go in with, near enough size. If I was looking at putting in a couple of grand into Delta, I'd probably quarter that, to be honest, because it is a very high risk trade right now. Not saying that you can't make money. I know there's going to be people watching this thinking, I don't know what I'm talking about, but you've got to weigh up the risks. I just think there's safer areas to look at right now. They are still offering a dividend of 1.1%, which it's nice to have. It's not going to break the bank, but it's nice to get a little dividend along the way. And the fact that they're trying to honor that, it's a good sign from the company standpoint that, the company themselves are really trying to keep investors invested in Delta. So that is a good sign. But if you know me and you know this channel right now, and if you don't know this channel, make sure you have subscribed and turned on the bell. But if you know me, the biggest sort of indicator for any stock to buy or sell is the insiders and fund managers and who is buying and selling the stock. And on Simply Wall Street, they make it very, very easy for you. And it's very, very concerning. It's no secret that Warren Buffett sold its whole stake. Berkshire Hathaway sold their whole stake, totaling around about $300 million in Delta Airlines recently. In fact, they closed out all airlines. So Berkshire Hathaway, and one of the smartest investors ever to have existed, doesn't like airlines. So that should sort of tell you everything you need to know in itself. But don't just take that $300 million sale and run with it, because there's more negative news when it comes to insider selling. There's a guy called Paul Jacobson, and he is the Executive Vice President and CFO, Chief Financial Officer. The guy who's, got the credit card and in charge of all the money of Delta. Now, he sold 2 positions totaling $1.2 million over the last 12 months. So he is actively selling shares. Why would a CFO be selling shares into an airline company, into a big dip, and selling in little pops? That doesn't make sense to me unless he knows something we don't. And that is, this airline will struggle, or all airlines are going to struggle. So I think that he is probably waiting for a bigger dip, and if at all, he might buy more shares then, or he's trying to cash out and run for the hills. You be the judge. Let me know in the comments what you think on that. Is Paul Jacobson just looking to buy a yacht and he needs cash, or does he not believe in Delta Airlines? Big question. Answer it in the comments. So it is a 1.3 out of 5 on my Excel, but don't let that fool you. I have bought stocks that are way, way less. That is just an indicator of how much size I want to take. So if I was looking at actively adding a 50,000 share position size, I'd probably only add a 13,000 share size right now, just to give you a bit of insight. But for me, if you want my opinion, I don't think Delta Airlines is a good buy right now. There's way too much risk. There's way too much outsider speculation as well. We still don't know what's going to happen with COVID. We don't know what's going to go with an election. Throw in a company that's got a hell of a lot of debt and the CFO is actively selling. You can see where I'm going with this. What I'd like to know from you is, are you buying Delta? Are you buying airlines? What's your favorite airline stock? Let me know in the comments. Please do subscribe, turn on the bell, and like this video. And if you want to support the channel, there's a Patreon link in the description where you can find what I'm buying and selling as it happens, but limited members only. Check that out. Thanks very much for watching. Be safe, trade safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.